All right, so strap yourselves in, folks, because today we're going to be doing a deep dive into the symbiote-infested world of Venom, The Last Dance. We've got some Wikipedia intel and some pretty intense fan breakdowns to guide us along the way. Get ready to unravel the mysteries of this crazy adventure and see how it shakes up the Sony Spider-Man universe. By the end of this deep dive, you'll be dropping Venom knowledge like it's nothing.
It's wild how this film is being presented as like a finale, you know,
Right.
like a farewell to Eddie and Venom as we know him. But it also feels like the beginning of something way bigger within the SSU, especially with the introduction of Null.
Yeah, it all starts with Eddie and Venom hanging out in this Mexican bar, same one from that Spider-Man No Way Home post-credit scene, talk about multiverse mingling. But their little getaway doesn't last long. Eddie ends up getting framed for murder, talk about a bad vacay, and they have to go on the run again, and that's when the xenophage thing shows up.
Oh, yeah, the xenophage. It's like a symbiote hunting bloodhound, and it's on Eddie and Venom's trail because of, get this, the Codex. See, when Venom brought Eddie back from the dead in the first film, it created this kind of genetic marker. A signature on this Codex, it's like a cosmic fingerprint that Null needs to escape his prison and unleash, well, universal chaos.
Okay, so imagine the Codex is this giant cosmic library. Each time a symbiote brings someone back to life, it leaves a little entry in there, a record of that event. And Null needs Venom's entry, Eddie's resurrection, to unlock the whole thing.
Exactly. That's why they're being hunted. And all this attracts the attention of Imperium, this secretive organization led by Rex Strickland, played by the one and only Chiwetel Ejiofor. They're based out of Area 51 conspiracy theories, anyone. They've been capturing and studying symbiotes that have crash-landed on Earth. Turns out they even have Patrick Mulligan, the guy who bonded with Carnage in the second movie. I thought he was a goner.
Hold on, Mulligan's back. So he's got a new symbiote now, and he's basically an Area 51 science project. That's insane. The plot thickens.
It does indeed. It gets even crazier when Eddie and Venom try to escape to New York. They hitch a ride on a plane, but of course the xenophage attacks mid-flight. Cue the dramatic desert landing. They end up with this family of, well, let's just say alien-obsessed free spirits who help them get to Vegas. And that's where things really get wild.
Vegas, baby. That's where they run into Mrs. Chen, you know, the awesome convenience store owner from the first movie. It's like a little bit of familiarity before all hell breaks loose. I bet Venom even tries to hit the dance floor.
Oh, there's definitely a scene where Venom lets loose a bit, which, knowing his personality, is probably both hilarious and terrifying to see. But the party doesn't last long. Strickland and Imperium show up, capture Venom, and take him back to Area 51. Naturally, Eddie's not about to let his other half rot in a government lab.
So they're back at Area 51. And that's where things get serious, right?
Yeah.
What's the deal with this whole Codex thing? Can't they just, like, chuck it into a volcano or something?
I wish it were that easy. We find out that the only way to destroy the Codex is for either Eddie or Venom to, well, die. Talk about a no-win situation. And to make things even worse, Null senses the Codex and starts sending these waves of xenophages to Earth through these interdimensional portals. Area 51 basically becomes a symbiote war zone.
Hang on, so there are multiple xenophages now.
Yeah.
And new symbiotes are bonding with, like, everyone. This is getting out of control.
It's total chaos. But in the middle of all this, Venom makes a heartbreaking decision. He realizes he has to sacrifice himself to save Eddie and the universe. So he merges with the xenophages and jumps into a vat of acid, destroying the Codex and himself. It's a truly emotional goodbye between him and Eddie.
Okay, that's heavy. I'm getting chills just thinking about it.
Huh.
So is that it? Is Venom really gone for good?
Well, that's where those post-credit scenes come in, and let me tell you, they change everything. First, we see Null back on his symbiote homeworld, furious that the Codex is gone. But he's even more determined to conquer the universe now. He's like the ultimate villain waiting in the wings, and you can feel his power through the screen. It's chilling.
Whoa, Null is terrifying. But what about the second post-credit scene? You mentioned it earlier. Spill the beans.
Patience, my friend. We'll get to that mystery in a bit. Let's give our listeners a moment to process all this, because trust me, that second post-credit scene is a game changer. You remember that bartender from the beginning? The one who was in the same Mexican bar as Eddie and Venom. The one who mysteriously showed up in Spider-Man No Way Home. Well, he's back. And he's trying to get out of the wreckage of Area 51. But here's where it gets really mind-blowing.
Wait, don't tell me it has something to do with a cockroach.
You got it! A little cockroach crawls out of the debris, and wouldn't you know it, it's got a piece of the Venom symbiote attached to it. Even though Venom sacrificed himself, a tiny part of him survived.
So you're telling me that this tiny little cockroach could be carrying the future of the entire SSU on its back? That's incredible. And, Kind of gross. Where could it even go from there? Back to Eddie. Find a new host.
The possibilities are endless. That's what makes this ending so brilliant. The symbiote is incredibly resilient. Even a fragment can regenerate. And who knows what'll happen when it finds a new host? Imagine the scenarios.
Okay, my mind is racing. Could it somehow find its way back to Eddie? Or will we see a completely new Venom running around the SSU? This is getting seriously complicated.
Complicated, yeah, but also incredibly exciting. And let's not forget about the potential for a Spider-Man crossover. Remember, there's still a piece of the Venom symbiote in the MCU after No Way Home. Could these two pieces somehow merge? Could we see Tom Holland's Spider-Man rocking the black suit? I'm getting chills just thinking about it.
Two Venoms. A potential Spider-Man team-up. My head is spinning. But before we get too lost in all the what-ifs and fan theories, let's take a step back and talk about what this movie is really trying to say. Beneath all the symbiote action and cosmic chaos, what are the deeper themes at play in Venom, The Last Dance?
At its core, I think this film is exploring the idea of redemption. Eddie Brock starts off as a flawed character, someone who's made mistakes and has to fight to regain his integrity. And Venom, despite being this alien creature, undergoes a transformation, becoming more of an antihero than a straight-up villain.
They definitely have this weird symbiotic relationship. It's not always pretty. But they learn to work together and even rely on each other to face these crazy challenges. And in the end, they both make sacrifices to protect each other and the world. It's a powerful message.
Exactly. It's about partnership, about overcoming your darker impulses and choosing to do the right thing, even if it means making a huge sacrifice. You see, the Codex and Null are tied to a core theme of the film, consequences. Venom reviving Eddie had unforeseen repercussions. Just like our actions in life often have unforeseen consequences, this echoes Eddie's journey of redemption as he constantly grapples with the impact of his past choices.
Whoa, that's deep. So it's not just about cool symbiote powers and epic battles. It's about facing the consequences of your actions and ultimately choosing to be a better person. Pretty heavy stuff for a superhero movie, but that's what makes these characters so compelling.
And speaking of compelling characters, we can't forget about Null. His arrival adds a whole new dimension to the SSU, expanding the scope from street-level threats to a universe-ending crisis. He's not just a villain, he's the embodiment of primordial darkness, the architect of the symbiote's very existence. His declaration to annihilate isn't just empty talk, it's a chilling promise of things to come.
Yeah, that post-credit scene with Null was seriously intense. He's not messing around. But you know what else is interesting? The film manages to feel like both an ending and a beginning. It wraps up Eddie and Venom's story arc while also setting the stage for a much larger saga within the SSU.
Exactly. It's a satisfying conclusion to their journey, but it also opens up a Pandora's box of possibilities for the future. And with Null looming in the shadows, it's clear that the stakes have never been higher.
Okay, so we've got this epic storyline, these complex characters, and a looming cosmic threat. But before we dive headfirst into all the what-ifs and fan theories, let's take a peek behind the curtain and talk about how this wild story came together. What were some of the highlights from the making of the film?
Oh, this is where you shine. I'm all ears.
Well, for starters, this is Kelly Marcel's directorial debut. She wrote the previous Venom films, but this time she was calling the shots behind the camera as well. And of course, Tom Hardy was heavily involved, even co-writing the story. It's always fascinating to see actors take on more creative control like that.
It definitely adds a unique perspective to the project. Did the production face any challenges along the way?
Yeah, actually. Filming was interrupted by that massive SAG-AFTRA strike, which must have caused some major headaches for the crew.
The impact of that strike was felt throughout the industry. Delays, reschedulings, it was a challenging time for many productions.
Despite the setback, they managed to finish the film. And from what I've heard, the visual effects are absolutely stunning, especially with all the symbiote action. The CGI in these films has always been top-notch, bringing those fantastical creatures to life in a truly impressive way.
I'm also curious about the music. Did they manage to capture that same blend of action and dark humor that's become synonymous with Venom?
They brought in Dan Deacon to compose the score for this one. If you know his work, you know it's going to be anything but ordinary. I have a feeling this soundtrack is phenomenal.
Music can make or break a film. Adding those extra layers of emotion and atmosphere, it's definitely something I'm looking forward to experiencing. But tell me, how did the critics respond to Venom, The Last Dance? Was it a hit or a miss?
Well, that's where things get a little interesting. The reviews were actually quite mixed. Some critics praised the over-the-top action and the emotional depth of the story, while others found the plot convoluted or weren't entirely sold on the film's overall tone. It seems like one of those movies that you really have to experience for yourself to form an opinion.
That's often the case with these larger-than-life superhero films. They spark debate, generate strong opinions, and ultimately it's up to the individual viewer to decide if they connect with the story being told.
So we've covered the plot, the characters, the themes, even the behind-the-scenes drama. But now it's time to tackle the biggest question of all. What does Venom, The Last Dance mean for the future of the Sony Spider-Man universe? And trust me, this is where things get really juicy. All right, so we've dug deep into the story, gotten to know the characters, even peeked behind the curtain at how it all came together. But now it's time for the big question, the one we've all been waiting for. What does Venom, The Last Dance mean for the future of the Sony Spider-Man universe? What clues have they left for us?
This film, it's like they've thrown open a door to a whole world of possibilities, especially with those post-credit scenes. That one with Null, that's a game changer for the SSU. We're not talking street-level threats anymore. We're talking cosmic, universe-ending danger.
Mel saying he'll annihilate the world, that wasn't just your average villain speech. It felt like a promise, like a glimpse into something truly terrifying. He's like the Thanos of the SSU, a force of nature that threatens everything we know.
And don't forget, Null isn't just some king of the symbiotes. He created them. He's their origin point. He embodies their darkness, their primal nature. That adds a whole other level of complexity to the danger he represents.
Okay, so we've got this universe-level threat in Null. But what about Venom? Or at least the Venom symbiote. Now it's hitched a ride on a cockroach. Where could it possibly go from here? Back to Eddie. To someone completely new. Or could it even, dare I say it, find its way to Spider-Man?
That symbiote on the cockroach, it's a loose end. And I'm willing to bet Sony's going to use it to spin some incredible stories. A return to Eddie, that seems likely, sure. But I wouldn't rule out a whole new Venom, someone with a totally different relationship to the symbiote.
And a Spider-Man crossover. Come on, we all know there's still a piece of the Venom symbiote in the MCU after No Way Home. Could they somehow merge? Could we finally see Tom Holland's Spider-Man in the black suit? The fanboy in me is losing it right now.
A Venom Spider-Man face-off, that's what so many fans want. And the multiverse, it's opened up so many possibilities for it to happen. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, at least in my opinion.
My heart can't handle much more speculation. But let's not forget those other symbiotes at Area 51. Some of them made it out, bonded with new hosts. Could those characters come back in future SSU films? Could we see a whole team of symbiote antiheroes? Maybe even a version of the Savage Six.
Those new symbiotes, they've blown the doors wide open for potential characters in the SSU. I wouldn't be surprised if they showed up again in future films. Maybe as allies, maybe as rivals to Venom. The possibilities are endless.
So if you were running the show, what would you do next? Where would you take these characters? What would you do with this whole Null situation?
That's the question, isn't it? There are so many exciting directions they could go. A King in Black adaptation, that feels almost guaranteed. And that would be the perfect opportunity for a massive showdown. Maybe even a team up with Venom, Spider-Man, other heroes to take down this cosmic threat.
Now, that's a movie I'd pay to see. But what about you, dear listener? What are your theories? How do you see the SSU unfolding? Head over to our social media and let us know your thoughts, your wildest predictions. Tell us who you'd cast as Null when they finally bring him to the big screen. We want to hear it all.
This deep dive, it's just the beginning of your own exploration. Go back to the source material, watch the movie again. Let your imagination run wild with what could happen next. That's the beauty of a universe like the SSU, so vast and unpredictable.
Thanks for joining us on this wild ride through the world of Venom, The Last Dance. Until next time, stay curious, keep exploring, and always dive deep.